In the burning heart of the African savannah, when the air seems to tremble over the dry grass, a silent battle is fought that few ever witness. Under the relentless sun, a slender figure stands out on the horizon, a long-legged bird with an imperturbable gaze, as elegant as it is lethal. It doesn't fly to hunt, it walks, it stalks, it strikes. It is the secretary bird, a unique hunter forged by an environment that does not forgive mistakes. His slow gait conceals surgical precision. Each step measures invisible distances. Each shadow is assessed as a potential threat or future food. With its legs, as long as they are strong, it can bring down dangerous prey without dirtying its plumage with the dust of combat. A single kick delivered with the force of a hammer is enough to break the neck of a reptile or crush the skull of a snake before it can defend itself. But on the savannah, even the most skilled hunters can encounter adversaries that defy all logic. Among the tall grass, where the wind masks movements and the earth retains the midday heat, glides another master of stalking, the King Cobra, a predator that commands respect even among the most experienced animals. His venom is a sentence and his penetrating gaze a clear warning. And though their realms rarely intersect, fate may bring them together in an impossible scenario: earth versus air, precision versus patience, poison versus strength. Both are creatures of the savannah, shaped by the need to survive on the edge between life and death. And when these two paths cross, nature ceases to be a landscape and becomes a battlefield. How does a bird confront a snake whose venom can kill it in seconds? And what happens when the balance of the savannah is decided in a single blow? The silence that follows the question clings to the savannah, thick, almost tangible. No movement disturbs the dry grass, and the horizon seems to hang in a moment of waiting. In the midst of that golden stillness, a figure rises above the grass. Slender, with long legs and a steady gaze, the secretary bird moves forward with a firm step, possessing a balance that only hunting experience can provide. At first glance, she seems oblivious to the danger surrounding her, but every movement is driven by pinpoint precision, inherited from generations who learned to survive where any mistake means death. Unlike birds of prey that dominate the air with claws and speed, she has chosen another stage, the ground. Their hunting territory extends between bushes and rocks, where prey rely on camouflage rather than escape. Each step of the bird is a precise sequence, a dance of control and power that engages every muscle in its body. The legs tense, the neck tilts gently, and the wings open just enough to balance the next charge. Each movement responds to the previous one as if the whole body obeyed the same silent intention. In this harmony of gestures lies its strength, a natural machinery designed to strike with surgical precision. It does not need the prolonged flight of other birds of prey, since its power is on the ground at the moment when speed becomes impact. His eyes, alert and calculating, govern everything. From a distance, he detects the slightest tremor among the shadows of the grassland. Then he moves forward with a deceptive calm, stopping only to measure, to calculate. It does not waste energy or rush. Every pause is a decision, every step a strategy, and on the savannah, where a minor error can cost a life, the secretary bird seems to move with the certainty of someone who has already learned all the lessons of danger. The change occurs in a barely perceptible instant. The bird's posture stiffens, its neck tilts, and its gaze sharpens like a blade. There, a shape glides with hypnotic slowness, a Cape viper, perfectly recognizable by its scale pattern and the characteristic movement of its body, moving cautiously through the grass. The proximity of the predator turns every moment into a challenge as each encounter demands precision. The snake undulates slightly, raising its head and emitting a short hiss, a warning that reflects its defensive instinct against the approaching predator. The confrontation doesn't depend on brute force, but rather on pace and distance. The bird takes a step forward, its eyes fixed on the reptile's head. And when he tries to launch the first attack, his paw comes down like a hammer, launching a sharp, accurate blow that seeks to immobilize immediately without leaving room for a counterattack. The snake writhes, trying to escape the blow, but the bird's precision leaves no chance. The secretary bird remains calm as it dominates the reptile's head, its firm legs supporting its opponent's every move. There's no rush or unnecessary gesture. Each action stems from the experience and discipline that evolution has taught us over generations. But the attack doesn't stop. Strike after strike, the secretary bird repeats the movement until the prey stops responding. With the snake completely immobilized, the secretary bird wastes no time in hesitation. He lifts it with his beak, adjusting the snake's position as each gesture follows a precise rhythm, guided by instincts honed over generations. The prey slides between its talons and beak, gradually settling in while the bird remains calm, ensuring that the consumption process proceeds quickly and safely. With the correct position assured, each movement prepares the next step of the food towards its ingestion. The bird begins to feed, holding the snake firmly while adjusting its position with its beak. Small prey can be swallowed whole, easily slid down its throat thanks to the precise coordination of its muscles. But when the snake is larger, the process changes. The bird cuts it into fragments with quick, controlled movements, making sure to avoid the head, where some active venom may still remain. Each portion is calmly brought to the mouth, swallowed without haste, in an act that combines efficiency and implacable serenity. There's no waste. Every bite provides the energy needed to sustain your long hunting days. An average-sized snake has enough calories to last a full day of activity, although under normal conditions it may need to capture several prey items per week to maintain its pace and strength. The efficiency of their feeding and the precision of their attacks ensure that every effort invested in hunting translates into survival, not a waste of energy. Satisfied, the bird cleans its beak with brief movements on the dry grass, an almost ritual gesture before leaving the place. After completing her meal, she walks away with the same calmness that characterized her during the hunt. While hawks and eagles rely on the air for their advantage, this hunter has found her dominance on the ground, where snakes and rodents once thought they had the upper hand. Its ability to move through thorny bushes, strike with speed, and maintain an attack stance without losing balance has given it an almost exclusive role in the Savannah ecosystem. In its environment, nothing is improvised. The height of its legs allows it to move through the grass without losing sight of the movement of the ground. Its flexible, strong neck acts as an extension of its vision, anticipating any escape attempt. There's no need to hide or lie in ambush. Hunting is direct, open, and always under the sun. In a landscape without shelter, where shade is scarce and distance is a factor, their strategy is born of adaptation. Strength in their legs replaces stealth, and speed replaces surprise. Every step he takes responds to a lesson imposed by the terrain, a response carved by generations of survival. This constant exposure to danger has shaped a bold, almost reckless nature. There's no hesitation in his movements, no fear in his gaze, only the certainty of someone who has made risk his natural environment. But she is not an infallible hunter, because even the most experienced hunter can stumble upon the limits of the terrain. For a moment, everything seems still. The grass barely moves, the air remains suspended, and a lizard glides between the stones, oblivious to the danger that threatens it. The secretary moves forward with precision, measuring every step, evaluating every movement of her prey. But the ground betrays its feet. A loose stone gives way under its weight, and the lizard, alerted by the movement, manages to escape just in time, leaving only a trail of dust that dissolves in the wind. At that moment, it becomes clear that the prey's speed and size can make the precision of the attack useless, reminding him that territory doesn't always offer guaranteed victories. However, even in error, his mastery is evident. He realigns his posture, reanalyzes, and continues. He doesn't give up, because every day on the savannah inevitably demands adaptation or death. But the plain changes with every hour, with every shadow and every trace erased by the wind. What offers prey today may be an empty land tomorrow. How then does this hunter manage to anticipate an environment that never stops changing? The surrounding savannah is not a uniform landscape. It's a vivid mosaic of low grasslands, patches of taller scrub, termite mounds, and temporary waterways that replenish with rainfall. Each of these elements defines opportunities and traps. In recently burned patches, visibility increases, and with it, prey becomes exposed. Lizards and small snakes take refuge in the crevices next to the termite mounds, seeking the warmth of the earth. The secretary scans the map, constantly reading the texture and humidity, identifying the types of prey that might appear in each section. Their prey are not uniform, nor are the solutions they apply to capture them. Small vertebrates include mice and other rodent species that tend to occur in areas with low vegetation, young land birds that venture out of the nest in the spring, and lizards that take advantage of the warmth of the day. During the rainy season, amphibians and an increase in large insects are added, especially grasshoppers, which in flocks attract a multitude of predators. The bird's diet therefore combines mobile and hidden prey, which requires flexibility in searching and decision-making. This feeding role positions it as a modulator of local balance. Keeping populations of small rodents under control prevents the overexploitation of seeds and young shoots, and reptile hunting helps prevent some snake species from becoming dominant in specific areas. At the same time, its presence alters the behavior of other species. Herbivores such as antelopes choose fences or open areas if they know that a secretary bird patrols the edges, and this movement in turn modifies the distribution of grass and shade for insects and seeds. This balance, however, does not depend solely on her hunting skills or the impact she has on other populations. In the same territory where her presence imposes order, the hunter also faces competition. The plain, diverse, and ever-changing does not offer undisputed dominion. During a capture, competitors may suddenly appear, attracted by the movement or smell of the newly shot prey. Among them, jackals are the most patient. They keep their distance, following each step with meticulous calculation. They wait for the moment when the raptor relaxes its vigilance before pounce, relying on confusion and speed to snatch the reward. Mongooses, on the other hand, operate with a different logic. They approach with low, swift movements, boldly skirting the scene, ready to fight over the smallest fragments or take advantage of the seconds before consumption. Sometimes their boldness puts them on the brink of danger, but their speed is usually enough to escape before receiving a lethal blow. Faced with these threats, the hunter doesn't retreat. She spreads her wings, raises her stance, and slams her hands to the ground or into the air, warnings that are enough to deter most. He neither pursues nor persists in fighting. He defends what is his with the same economy of energy with which he hunts. It is in this constant tension that the true essence of its territory is revealed, a theater of forces where the secretary bird must protect itself not only from threats, but also from its triumphs. But even as the danger on the ground dissipates, another threat comes from above. Vultures and marabou storks, always alert to the movement or scent of a recent victim, begin to descend in wide circles, attracted by the possibility of an easy feast. The hunter raises her neck and spreads her wings, amplifying her size in a warning gesture. It stamps its feet on the ground, makes a brief hissing noise with its beak, and holds its ground until intruders gauge the distance and retreat, terrified by the consequences. The secretary bird's constant vigilance doesn't end when the vultures or storks leave. Every day on the plains presents a new challenge, and not all of it comes from other hunters. The environment itself can become an adversary. Changes in the landscape due to prolonged drought or intense fires reduce the number of prey and force the predator to expand its search radius. On freshly burned land, there are temporary advantages as visibility increases and small animals are exposed among the ashes. But these opportunities are fleeting, and soon scarcity dictates longer commutes. Human presence also alters their habits. Paths opened by livestock and crops create borders where rodents thrive or abruptly disappear, and the hunter must learn to read these changes to avoid wasting energy. Under these conditions, their adaptability is put to the test, because every decision involves choosing between exploring new areas or defending territories where rivals are already waiting for their opportunity. This constant demand for adaptation has not only shaped his behavior, it has also left its mark on his body. Each visible feature, each feather and each color respond to a precise need imposed by the environment. Every element of its anatomy seems designed for a purpose, ready to act at any moment, revealing the precision and efficiency of millions of years of evolution. How has this hunter managed to transform her own body into a survival tool? The appearance of the secretary bird has roots in this constant selective pressure. The dark plume that crowns the nape of the neck and the eyelash-like feathers are not mere ornaments. They function as visual signals in communication with peers during encounters, while also reducing glare and dust raised by grass. The contrast between the light body plumage and the dark wings and tail allows each gesture to be clearly perceived even from a distance, an advantage that extends beyond hunting coordination. At the same time, the upright posture and calculated movements transform gestures into a language that facilitates interaction during the couple bond. Far from being a simple ritual, each display becomes a constant visual negotiation that conveys health, vigor, and a willingness to share territories, demonstrating that this hunter's survival depends not only on strength, but also on communication and social strategy. Just as every gesture and every feather plays a role in communication and social strategy, this hunter's body also reveals subtle variations that reflect differences between individuals. Regarding the sexes, the species displays very moderate dimorphism. Both males and females retain very similar traits in coloration and general shape. The variations that exist are seen above all in body size, where females tend to be slightly smaller, a detail that, although minimal, influences hunting dynamics and interaction within the territory. This parity reflects that both sexes assume similar responsibilities in daily life, from foraging to defending breeding areas, reducing the need for marked plumage differentiation. The way they display themselves, the priority they assign to defense over cooperation, and the nuances in their visual communication set the stage for the rituals that ensure reproduction. If appearance is a contract written in feathers, courtship and breeding are the exercises in which that agreement is made or broken. How do they transform these signals into a courtship language and into lessons they will then pass on to their offspring? The savannah has changed, the rains have stopped, and the air has become drier, denser, and more demanding. In the midst of this landscape that seems asleep under the sun, a pair of secretary birds prepares for one of the most important moments of their life cycle, reproduction. After weeks of patrolling the territory and defending every bit of ground they step on, both begin to display different behaviors. They no longer hunt with the same intensity, and now their movements are accompanied by sweeping flights and precise choreography, gestures that announce the arrival of the procession. The male begins the sequence with an undulating, ascending, and then swooping flight, allowing the midday light to highlight the silvery sheen of his feathers. Sometimes it descends until it almost touches the ground, spreads its wings, and rises again with a vigorous impulse. On land, the male approaches slowly, walking in circles around the female. Her steps are measured, her neck is tilted, and the feathers of her crest open delicately, unfolding like a fan that shows strength and symmetry. Each movement is closely observed by the partner, who maintains a certain distance, standing upright, evaluating each gesture with a steady, measured gaze. The air between them seems thick with anticipation. His partner responds with subtle movements of her neck, small undulations that indicate interest but also reserve and caution. The male repeats his display, adjusting his posture and the width of his feathers, demonstrating patience and precision. Every gesture, every pause, every slight inclination becomes a silent communication where the trust needed to form a lasting bond is negotiated. When the raptor finally recognizes the male's perseverance and skill, she responds by standing up and with more open gestures sealing her acceptance. In this exhibition there is no violence, but rather a ritual precision where each step serves a purpose to establish the trust necessary to consolidate a union that can last for decades. During the first few days after the pair has formed, the birds do not simply stay together. They patrol the territory in a coordinated manner, advancing through tall grass and bushes, observing every movement and ensuring that no threat approaches. Their paths aren't chaotic, they complement each other, allowing each to learn from the other and strengthening mutual trust in hunting and surveillance. They move carefully and in sync, adjusting the posture of their necks and crests, displaying subtle gestures that function as a silent language of coordination. Between calculated pauses and measured steps, they both watch the other face off against elusive prey, assessing their skills and reaffirming the certainty that together they will dominate their territory more effectively. Their close proximity allows them to monitor each other for any danger and anticipate reactions to intruders or competitors. This constant practice strengthens the synchronization they will need later when they must care for their offspring and maintain the security of the nest. The couple thus prepares day after day for the moment when they can translate that coordination into the construction of a shared home. There, among branches that resist the wind, they begin to intertwine dry sticks, one after another, forming a wide platform. The nest is not a light structure. It must support both adults and their young. They build it together over several days, adjusting the base, reinforcing the rim, and lining the center with grass and down to create a soft bed. From above, they can survey the horizon, detect predators, and spot prey. This height is not a whim, but a strategy that balances safety and visibility. Inside the nest, the female lays 1 to 3 eggs, generally with an interval of 1 or 2 days between each laying. Each egg receives warmth from the moment it is laid, beginning an incubation process that lasts approximately 42 to 46 days, during which both parents alternate in the task. The male is primarily responsible for bringing food, while the female remains on the eggs. During this period, silence prevails around the nest. Vocalizations are kept to a minimum, and each return is made with caution. Because any carelessness can attract the attention of an opportunistic predator, the pair moves with precision, as if the savannah itself had dictated an ancestral code of discretion. Finally, when the young hatch, they emerge covered in grayish-white down and are vulnerable, blind, and totally dependent on their parents. The adults watch them closely, leaning over them with measured movements, assessing their vitality and making sure each one is safe before acting. Then, the parents begin to feed them with cut prey, teaching them from the very beginning that meat is both sustenance and danger. As they grow, their plumage darkens, their crest forms, and their long, powerful legs strengthen with their first attempts to stand. Learning doesn't begin when they leave the nest, but from the moment they observe their parents' movements, the way they balance, how they strike at their prey, or how they scan the ground. These are the lessons the chicks memorize with instinctive precision, and when they reach about 3 months of age, the young birds begin to spread their wings, testing their strength in short flights around the tree. However, his true skill is developed on dry land. It is there that they learn the art that defines their species, hunting through precision and strength. Adults lead them to safe areas where insects and small rodents move through the grass. There they watch them practice their first blows, clumsy and uncoordinated at first, but accurate and lethal over time. Learning is constant. Children fail, try again, and every mistake is part of the lesson. The technique is not completely inherited, it is perfected with experience, and the parents, with unusual patience in birds of prey, accompany this process until the young are able to hunt on their own. This prolonged dedication reveals the social intelligence of the species. The monogamy of secretary birds not only responds to the need to breed in pairs, but also to a strategy for reproductive success. Laying few eggs and maintaining a long incubation period means they cannot afford to risk losing any of their offspring. Unlike other birds that produce large clutches and rely on the likelihood that some will survive, this raptor invests time, attention, and energy into each of its eggs, ensuring their survival. Raising children alone would be impossible in an environment where every day represents a threat. Therefore, cooperation becomes essential to address the risks of the territory. Together, the parents maintain the balance that ensures the continuity of their lineage, sharing efforts, vigilance, and nourishment in a routine as demanding as it is precise. From this cooperation emerges a bond that transcends mere instinct. More than an emotional bond, it's an alliance based on survival, where every gesture has a purpose. The result is a highly skilled offspring with finely tuned reflexes and a deep understanding of the terrain around it. When the learning process is complete, the reproductive cycle comes to an end. The young leave the nest and join the vast savanna landscape, while the exhausted adults resume their routine, once again hunting in pairs and reinforcing their territory from the treetops. Thus, each season repeats the same dance, the same rituals and strategies that for generations have ensured the survival of the species in an environment as hostile as it is fascinating. But even in that balance, where everything seems to be under control, the savanna harbors presences that burst in without warning. What appears to be stillness is, in reality, merely a truce. Shadows glide soundlessly through the golden grasses, moving with ancient patience and relentless purpose. They are part of the landscape, but they don't belong to it. They inhabit its margins, where the light fades and the bird's vigilance fades. At the edge of the hunting ground, something creeps with a hypnotic rhythm, approaching the bird's domain. The calm becomes tense, as if the air itself sensed the invasion. Between the grasses, something cuts across the horizon with a slow, steady movement. It's not the wind pushing those weeds, but a presence creeping with purpose. Over an open clearing, the male secretary bird stands watch. Its silhouette, silhouetted against the light, stands as firm as a statue. A few feet away, his calf watches the movements of a small rodent escaping through the bushes. It's a hunting lesson, one of many the father imparts before the young moose takes flight on its own. The female, further back, remains alert, ready to intervene if the teaching turns into a threat. But suddenly the bird detects something. A distinct oscillation, an almost imperceptible interruption in the landscape. Its eyes, adapted to distinguish movement among the confusion of grass, locate a sinuous line gliding with an irregular rhythm. The male's body tenses. He makes no sound, but his posture changes. His wings are partially spread, a gesture that not only imposes distance, but also warns and teaches at the same time. The baby imitates him, although without fully understanding what is happening. From the grass, the snake emerges. Its body seems endless. It rises with calculated slowness, unfurling its glistening hood in the sun. It is a king cobra, queen among reptiles, whose venom is enough to bring down any creature of the plains. His fixed gaze does not express fear, but an absolute awareness of his own power. The air thickens between them, two predators from different kingdoms sizing each other up, each reading the other's signals with the precision of those who have evolved to survive. The bird advances with measured steps. The snake responds by raising its head even higher, ready to launch its attack. So, the first move. The male stamps the ground with one of his paws, raising dust. The snake attacks, launching its bite with almost invisible speed, but the bird dodges and responds with a sharp kick that lands inches from its head. The blow resounds like a drum on the earth. Another attack, another blow. The pace quickens. It's a violent dance, a succession of attacks and defenses that seem to be executed according to a choreography written by instinct. The bird's legs descend again and again, swift and precise, like hammers. The cobra's scales resist, but the impact accumulates. The snake tries to retreat, looking for an angle to counterattack. It manages to lunge forward, grazing one of the bird's legs. The movement is almost imperceptible, but sufficient. The male, without pausing, responds with one last blow. His leg comes down with all his force on the reptile's head. A dry sound, a spasm, and then stillness. The cobra writhes one last time before lying still. The bird remains upright, breathing heavily. The battle is over, but something isn't right. A small wound on his leg is beginning to darken. The poison, even if the contact is brief, is already making its way into his blood. The raptor tries to take a step but stumbles. The female and the young watch from a distance. The young woman, restless, emits a slight whistle, a call. The father raises his head once more. He looks toward them, and his expression isn't one of defeat. It's a look that seems to contain the weight of the lesson. The youngster will never forget that moment. The wind blows, and the male's feathers ruffle gently as his body yields to the invisible force that courses through him. He collapses with dignity, with the serenity of someone who has fulfilled his purpose. Silence falls once more upon the clearing. The cobra's body lies motionless in the dust, and beside it, the body of the bird that defeated it. The female slowly descends, approaches, and remains still next to him. The youngster from a distance watches with a mixture of confusion and instinctive understanding. There is no regret, only continuity. The savannah never stops. Each life feeds another. Each death sustains the balance of what remains. As the sun sets over the horizon, a new draft blows through the grass, and with it, the promise of things to come. In the skies, the echo of the secretary bird still resounds, a brief song that merges with the murmur of the wind. Their offspring will learn from this example because in this territory, survival is also a heritage. But not all species in the African savanna are in endless conflict. Some, despite belonging to completely opposite worlds, manage to collaborate with each other in the most unexpected ways. What could possibly unite two species accustomed to living at opposite ends of the hierarchy? Dawn turns the tall grass golden. In the shadow of an acacia tree, a pride of lions rests beside the remains of a recently hunted buffalo. It's migration season in the vast Serengeti savanna, when the landscape is alive with movement and opportunity. The air still retains the metallic smell of blood, and the constant buzzing of insects announces that the day has just begun. The calm seems absolute, but a few meters away, two jackals remain motionless, watching the lions' every move with calculated attention. They lie in wait, measuring the distance, and waiting for the moment when safety overcomes hunger. For hours, the big cats slouch lazily through the bushes until lethargy completely overcomes them. Only when the roars die down and the golden bodies lie motionless in the grass do the jackals venture forward. They approach cautiously, sniffing the ground and turning their heads at the slightest sound. A few meters away, the lions sleep, content, showing no sign of discomfort. The unexpected happens then. They don't react, they don't get angry, and they allow, at least on this occasion, these little intruders to finish the job they've started. This momentary tolerance reveals something deeper than mere chance. Although they do not hunt with the same force or act as direct companions, lions and jackals share a fundamental goal. Both seek food in an environment where every bite is earned through cunning and patience, and where survival depends as much on strategy as opportunity. In the savannah, carrion is as valuable as freshly killed prey. Jackals, guided by an extraordinary sense of smell and ever-awake hearing, detect the presence of death from great distances. Sometimes they arrive before the larger predators, attracted by a barely perceptible trail on the wind. Other times they discover a dying animal and emit a high-pitched, persistent howl that breaks the silence of dawn. A signal capable of traveling for miles and attracting the attention of those who govern the territory. This is because, despite their instinct and speed, jackals do not have the strength necessary to bring down and completely consume a large animal like a buffalo. The weight, endurance, and defense of the animal itself make hunting a very risky undertaking. It is for this reason that they take advantage of the strength of other predators, transforming the opportunity into food. This relationship is based on commensalism, a bond in which one species gains an advantage without directly harming the other. Lions barely notice the jackal's presence except when they get too close. The small scavengers know how to judge the distance. They wait, move through the bushes, and only approach when the big cats have had their fill or have retreated. Sometimes that wait can last for hours, but patience is usually rewarded. However, this apparent coexistence is not without tension. In some encounters, an irritated lion may attack and kill a jackal with a simple swipe of its paw. At other times, a lioness tolerates the presence of these small intruders as long as they pose no threat to her cubs. It's a delicate balance based on opportunity and prudence. One miscalculation, one overly bold approach, and collaboration turns into tragedy. Even so, jackals have perfected their strategy. Their compact bodies and calculating instincts allow them to move stealthily and retreat quickly. They follow lion prides for miles, always maintaining a safe distance. They know their habits, anticipate their movements, and take advantage of every trace of their activity. When big cats hunt, scavengers watch. When they rest, they come closer to inspect the remains. This sequence is repeated day after day, season after season, like an ancestral choreography engraved in the genes of both species. This dance isn't limited to gestures and movements, it also has its own language. Among the bushes, jackals emit piercing calls, a sonic code capable of attracting other scavengers, including vultures and hyenas. And sometimes these signals serve an unexpected function, alerting us to the presence of intruders. When hyenas enter the lion's territory, the jackals intensify their calls as if responding to a threat that goes beyond the simple search for food. This exchange of alerts benefits both sides. The lions strengthen their control over the territory and reduce the intrusion of competitors, while the jackals gain the advantage of moving safely and, by following the big cats, accessing carcasses with less risk of having to hunt themselves. This system, although seemingly simple, is based on a calculated economy of risk. For lions, giving up a small portion of their kill doesn't represent a significant loss. Their hunting power and territorial dominance ensure a constant advantage. For jackals, approaching a sleeping or distracted lion means exposing themselves to considerable danger, but the energetic reward makes it a worthwhile gamble. Thus, the savannah becomes a decision-making board where each species assesses, with instinctive precision, the balance between risk and reward. Long-term observation reveals a pattern. Mutual tolerance increases when prey is abundant and decreases during the dry season, when hunger sharpens instincts and competition becomes fiercer. During these periods, the jackals become bolder and may even approach while the lions are still devouring their prey, risking the predator's fury. They don't always emerge unscathed, but in this ecosystem, even the audacity to try is part of the cycle of survival. This constant exposure to danger has shaped his behavior. Each failed attempt leaves a mark that refines his instinct, making prudence his best weapon. Before approaching, the jackal analyzes every detail of the environment. It measures distances, identifies the wind, and assesses the mood of the big cats. He never acts on impulse, but on calculation. His gaze scans the terrain with methodical precision. He detects the movements of vultures circling overhead, the slight tremor of the grass that betrays the presence of insects or rodents, even the change in the direction of the wind that might betray their scent. Every sign counts because every mistake could cost you your life. Their anatomy is shaped for this kind of constant surveillance. Its pricked ears capture almost imperceptible sounds, and its highly refined sense of smell allows it to recognize the condition of prey from several kilometers away. It lacks the strength of a large predator, but its body is designed for endurance and observation, light legs, alert senses, and a mind that calculates before acting. Every move is guided by the memory of past encounters and the fine-tuned intuition that only experience can provide. In this caution lies his greatest strength, knowing when to move forward and when to wait. But its role isn't limited to cunning. In the invisible balance of the savannah, the jackal plays a vital role. Clean up after others, prevent carrion from accumulating, and help the cycle of life continue. It's not just an opportunist, it's part of a machine that maintains the health of the ecosystem, a small but indispensable piece within the vast natural mechanism. This pattern is repeated throughout the savannah and can be observed in moments as subtle as they are decisive. The lioness opens her eyes, looks at him, and closes them again. In that fleeting moment, tolerance manifests itself in its purest form, a momentary truce between two species that, without the need for a pact, have learned to coexist. This relationship, halfway between competition and cooperation, demonstrates that even in an environment governed by brute force, there is room for strategy and adaptation. Nothing in the savannah happens by chance. Every encounter, every glance, every small gesture is part of an invisible balance that keeps the ecosystem moving. But when the prey becomes an organized force, will the strategy of the most powerful hunters be enough? In the heart of the Serengeti, the earth vibrates under the constant passage of thousands of migrating buffalo. It is the season of movement, one of the great odysseys of the savannah, where life unfolds en masse and in danger. A group of lions watches from a distance, huddled like a silent shadow on the grass, measuring every moment before launching into one of the most daring chases this vast landscape has to offer. The air is thick with dust and anticipation. The sun beats down on the tense backs of the hunters, whose golden eyes calculate invisible trajectories. The lionesses disperse with the precision of a silent army, each taking its position. Among them, a young male, with light fur and no mane, tries to keep pace with the group. His movements reveal strength, but also the impatience of someone who has not yet mastered the strategy. In the distance, on a hill, the alpha lion watches. His body is imposing, his dark mane gleaming with coppery highlights. It doesn't intervene, it doesn't roar. Its job isn't to hunt, but to watch. Every step, every decision of the group happens under his gaze. In front of them, the buffalo advance like a living wall. Their bodies brush against each other, their hooves raising clouds that blur the horizon. There are hundreds, perhaps thousands. Every muscle works in unison in an ancient, heavy, perfectly synchronized movement. At the heart of this mass, the alpha males protect the circle where the young gather. They know that lions are lurking. They have always known it. The silence stretches to its limit. The insects fall silent, and for a moment the air seems motionless. The lionesses blend into the grass, invisible. The young man's eyes search for a sign, a slight movement that indicates the start of the attack. But the wind changes just a breath, and a buffalo raises its head, sniffing. The moment is broken. The hunt leader, an experienced lioness, makes the first move, and the Serengeti bursts into life. The roar of the pack cuts through the air like a flash of lightning, and the chase begins. Lions try to separate a young buffalo from the group, driving it into an ambush. The dust blinds, the air stings. The young male runs furiously, overwhelmed by adrenaline, without waiting for the coordination of the rest. It is launched prematurely, a minimal error but sufficient. The buffalo detects the movement and reacts. It doesn't flee, it spins around, facing the threat with a roar that shakes the ground. Its sharp, massive antlers become a weapon. The impact is brutal. The young man can't dodge. A sharp blow throws him through the air. His body spins amidst dust and screams. The pride of lions redirects the attack to save the attempt while he falls several meters away. The chaos lasts only a few seconds, but on the savannah, a few seconds can decide between food and death. When it's all over, the lions manage to bring down another buffalo, and the group gathers around the fallen prey, and within minutes, the earth turns red under the shadows of the hunters. The young male, however, remains standing apart, panting with a gaping wound in his side. Blood slowly trickles down his fur, mixing with the dust. He gets up with difficulty, limping. In the distance, his brothers are devouring. He approaches, staggering, claiming his share, but no one moves to give him space. He only takes a few quick bites before the roars of the older ones force him back. The alpha observes from a distance. He doesn't approach. He doesn't intervene. In the language of the pack, compassion is a dangerous weakness. The wound is not fatal, but a couple of days without hunting will be enough to shake the internal balance. On the savannah, a wounded lion is not a symbol of courage, but an unwanted burden. Evening descends on the Serengeti. The heat fades and the shadows lengthen like omens. The young man lies down under an acacia tree, wiping away the blood with his rough tongue. His breathing is slow, and his body is exhausted. From there, he can see the silhouettes of his pack against the horizon, the bodies of those they devour, the alpha standing like a fiery statue in the distance. No one turns their gaze towards him. The wind blows through the grass, carrying the scent of the dead buffalo. In that silence, the young man raises his head. The pain is still there, but something different burns in his eyes. He has felt the enemy's strength. He has tasted the fall. In that instant, something primal awakens within him, a mixture of rage and determination. For their part, the buffalo continue their migration, indifferent to the drama behind them. In the distance, the roar of the alpha resounds, marking their territory. In a land where every mistake can cost a life, can a wounded, maneless lion find his place among the kings of the savannah? The young lion returns to the territory, dragging the body through the dry grass. The air still retains the metallic scent of the fallen buffalo, a scent that mingles victory with blood. Every step he takes is a reminder of the mistake he made during the hunt. The wound, barely visible among the golden fur, beats with a pulse of its own, and the heat of the day mixes with the ardor of failure. In the distance, their herd rests under the scattered shade of the acacia trees. The group has eaten well, their bodies are full and their stomachs satisfied. The lionesses lick their dusty paws, while the cubs frolic at the edge of the clearing. But the return of the wounded man arouses neither enthusiasm nor compassion. Only fleeting glances and a thick silence greet him. In the language of lions, weakness has no place. In a structure as strict as that of big cats, the value of each individual is measured by its usefulness. The pack is a living machine, where each member fulfills a specific role. Females hunt, males dominate, and young learn. Any broken link threatens the stability of the whole, and the young man marked by his mistake suddenly becomes expendable. As they approach, the lionesses tense. They don't growl, but their bodies lean forward subtly, a silent warning. One of them, the largest, emits a low, dry, barely audible roar enough to mark the limits. He stops, panting. He gets the message. The cubs, who had previously followed him curiously, are immediately pushed aside by their mothers with a firm nudge of their snouts. In the savannah, distance is always a form of protection. In the distance, atop a small hill, the alpha lion watches the scene. His dark mane gleams in the setting sun, and although he doesn't move, his presence is enough to maintain order. He is the symbol of hierarchy, the weight of authority. He doesn't need to attack to impose his dominance. His gaze alone defines each person's position. The young man lowers his head, not out of submission, but out of instinct. You can't challenge him, not now. He lies down some distance from the group, in the shade of a wind-worn rock. From there, he watches the others feed on the buffalo carcasses. His stronger, more experienced brothers tear into the flesh with ease, sharing what he helped chase but not bring down. Sometimes a lioness drags a piece of meat to her cubs, and the smell hits them like a punishment. Hunger mingles with humiliation, but he doesn't come any closer. One false step, and he could be expelled. The afternoon slowly fades, and with it the murmur of insects begins to fill the air. The young man licks his wound gently. The saliva cleanses, but also stings. His breathing is deep and labored. Each heartbeat reminds him that he's still alive, though isolated. It is not death that he fears, but the condemnation of oblivion within his own species. In the darkest hours, even predators know the weight of loneliness. In lion biology, rejection isn't cruelty, but efficiency. prides can't afford compassion. Survival demands order, and order doesn't allow for weakness. A wounded lion attracts scavengers, delays travel, and threatens the safety of the cubs. Therefore, the sick isolate themselves, or are isolated by their loved ones. It is a law as old as the savannah itself. The young man raises his head when he hears a distant roar. It's the call of the females setting off again to hunt. Most of the group sets off, leaving behind the cubs and a pair of young lionesses tasked with guarding them. The alpha, from his position, stands up and disappears into the shadows. Within minutes, the clearing is plunged into silence. Night falls with solemn slowness. The crickets begin their song and the air grows cold. The young lion remains motionless, staring at the horizon. The moon illuminates him, and in his eyes is reflected something more than tiredness, a spark that has not yet been extinguished. His body trembles with pain, but his gaze remains fixed. In that absolute silence, where every creature seeks refuge, he decides to resist. From the shadows, a young lioness approaches. She carries no meat, no gesture of comfort. She simply stops in front of him, stares at the wound, and for a moment their breaths mingle. Then he walks away without a gesture, leaving behind a faint footprint in the dust. He follows her with his eyes until she disappears. He doesn't know if it was compassion or simple curiosity. The young man falls onto his side, exhaling a low roar, almost like a sigh, not of defeat, but of determination. The night spreads over him, deep and dense. In the savannah, the strong hunt, the weak fall, but some, like him, wait. The savannah wakes up wrapped in a dense silence, interrupted only by the distant buzzing of insects and the murmur of the wind through the dry grass. Serengeti plains with gold and copper. Among the fading shadows, one figure remains motionless, the wounded young lion. Her breathing is heavy, marked by the pain throbbing beneath her skin, but her eyes remain open, watchful. He knows that rest in the savannah is not a right, but a risk. The rest of the herd is scattered. The experienced hunters have moved into the distance, following the trail of the buffalo's movements. In the center of the territory, only the youngest lionesses remain, the inexperienced ones, those who have not yet mastered the art of hunting, and with them, the cubs. The air smells of dust and fear, of the stillness that precedes something unknown. Suddenly a sound breaks the dawn. It's not the bellow of buffalo, nor the cry of birds. It's a short, dry, resounding laugh. A harsh laugh that seems to spring from the ground itself. The cubs raise their heads and the younger lionesses tense their muscles. From the bushes, a figure emerges with a confident stride, a large, thick-necked male hyena with a cunning gaze. She moves with the confidence of someone who has traveled through this territory many times, attracted by the smell of meat and the absence of adult hunters. The young lion watches silently. His ears are flattened. The wound on his flank throbs with each breath, but his instincts have already been ignited. The lionesses take a few steps back, forming a protective semicircle in front of the cubs, but none of them advance. It's not cowardice, it's biology. They must preserve the young and avoid a fight that could attract a pack of hyenas. If even one were to fall, the consequences would be fatal. The young man understands. No one is going to intervene. He's alone. His body trembles slightly as he sits up. His injured leg weighs heavily, but duty outweighs the pain. For a few seconds, he simply stares at the intruder. The hyena stops moving, sniffing the air. He knows his opponent is weak. The predator and the scavenger study each other in silence, two survivors from different worlds united by the same purpose, to live another day. A deep roar breaks the stillness. The young lion has issued his warning. The sound vibrates in the air, stirring dust and causing the cubs to huddle together. The hyena responds with a throaty laugh, almost a challenge. He steps forward, tilting his head. His legs move with calculated slowness, looking for an angle, a distraction, an opening, but the lion doesn't back down. His breathing becomes a steady growl, his gaze a tense line of fire. Every movement hurts, but the fear has transformed into something else. He's not fighting for himself, but for the pack, for the pups who can't defend themselves. His instinct has left doubt behind. Now only duty remains. The first clash is swift. The hyena darts to the side, trying to bite the open wound. The lion spins with a roar that cracks like thunder and slashes out with a swipe that slices through the air. It doesn't hit the target, but the force of the blow is enough to make the intruder retreat a few steps. The hyena responds with a leap and manages to graze the lion's flank, tearing part of its fur. Pain shakes him, but the feline does not give in. The earth rises to dust. The sound of battle breaks the dawn. Each roar is an ancient call, a voice that spans generations. The lion pounces again, biting the enemy's neck. The hyena screams, struggles, but cannot get away. In a final push, the young man pushes her to the ground, and even though his wound widens, he doesn't stop. Fury sustains him. There's no calculation or strategy, only the raw pulse of survival. For an eternal moment, the two remain locked in a wild dance. Then the hyena manages to free himself, moans and staggers back. His ears fold, his eyes fluctuate between fear and frustration. He finds no more reason to continue. He turns and walks into the grass, disappearing into the distance as his laughter fades into the echoes of the savannah. Suddenly, silence returns. The young lion stands, panting, covered in dust and blood. His side trembles, the wound throbs, but his eyes remain fixed in the direction in which his enemy disappeared. Around them, the grass begins to sway gently again. The wind blows across the ground, carrying with it the scent of blood and adrenaline that slowly dissipates. The young lion stands, panting, his fur bristling, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the hyena has disappeared. His body trembles not only from the exertion but from the pain throbbing in the wound that has yet to heal. Around him, silence spreads like recognition. There's no celebration, but there's no indifference either. Just the weight of an act that has shifted the balance within the pack. The lionesses, who had remained motionless during the confrontation, approach cautiously, and now their movements are different. They no longer move away. They no longer observe him from a distance. They approach slowly with their bodies low and their tails lowered, showing a mixture of respect and curiosity. One of them stops in front of him and, without fear, brushes his flank with its snout. It is a brief, almost imperceptible gesture, but it changes everything. One by one, the others follow suit. They surround him, forming a silent circle. The young man collapses, exhausted, his deep breathing stirring up the dust from the ground. The sun, descending over the horizon, casts its long shadows onto the grass. The scene has something of a ritual about it. The lionesses' tails sway in time with the wind, and the cubs, until now hidden, emerge from their hiding place and approach timidly. One of them dares to touch his budding mane, the first symbol of the change that will soon make him an adult. There are no roars or gestures of power, only the calm that comes after sacrifice. In the distance, the savannah heralds the return of the hunting pride. The lionesses who set out in search of prey return covered in dust and the smell of blood. Among them are the young man's brothers, the same ones who had seen him fail. Behind them all, the alpha male walks, his mane dark like the shadow of a storm. The group advances with an almost solemn certainty, and the young man, still lying down, watches them without moving, aware of what that moment means. The alpha stops a few meters away. For a few seconds, everything freezes. Only the sound of the wind through the dry grass can be heard. The leader's gaze fixes on the young man. There is mistrust, but also something deeper. Recognition. The alpha takes a slow step, tilts his head and sniffs the air. Then he circles around him, marking his territory, but doesn't attack. Finally, he raises his head, lets out a deep roar, and walks away without looking back. There are no kind gestures in the lion hierarchy. Respect is shown by accepting silence. The young man tries to sit up. His muscles protest, the wound hurts, but he manages. He takes a few wobbly steps and stands still, watching as the rest of the pack surrounds him without hostility. The lionesses look at him with a new gleam in their eyes. He is no longer the wounded man who dragged himself behind the others. Now, he's the one who defended the cubs when no one else would, the one who faced danger when the others were far away. The wound, still open, now becomes his insignia. As the sun sinks below the horizon, the Serengeti turns red. Cubs play around it, mimicking its roars and jumping between its paws. He watches them patiently, and for the first time his gaze is calm. The fear is gone. What remains is the certainty of his place. The savannah doesn't grant second chances easily, but when it does, it seals them with a dignity that endures. Later, when darkness envelops everything, the young man lies down beside the lionesses. The night air is filled with sounds, crickets, distant birds, the murmur of the wind. From all of them, a roar rises, deep, firm, resonant. It's their roar. It is not the challenge of a leader, but the affirmation of someone who has found their purpose. In the distance, the herd responds with a deep echo that expands across the plain, a natural symphony of strength and unity. The night advances, and with it the eternal cycle of the savannah. The young man closes his eyes, letting the warmth of the group envelop him. At the heart of the pack, there is no longer a wounded or an outcast, but a new guardian, one who has understood that true strength lies not in dominating, but in protecting. And so, under a star-studded sky, the young lion's story blends with the murmur of wildlife, a reminder that even in the fiercest kingdom on earth, strength finds its meaning when it's used in service to others. The lion pride, the secretary bird, the jackals, the buffalo, and even the snakes move in the same arena, where every action has repercussions. Every decision shapes the balance. Life on the savannah isn't a constant conflict. It's a web of relationships where instinct coexists with opportunity and where cooperation, often silent, defines survival. Not all species in the African savannah find themselves in an endless confrontation. Some, despite belonging to completely opposite worlds, manage to collaborate in unexpected ways. Jackals sneak up on the edges of lion hunts, collecting remains that guarantee their food while warning of imminent danger. Oxpeckers perch on the bodies of large herbivores, feeding on parasites and in return emitting signals that warn of the presence of predators. Even elephants and antelopes, which differ in size and strategy, find in each other's presence an advantage that multiplies their chances of survival. Every connection, every interaction is no coincidence. It's a tacit alliance that sustains life in one of the most extreme ecosystems on the planet. The young lion, now healed and recognized for his courage, is not only an example of physical recovery, but a symbol of how boldness and protecting one's own kind earn respect. Their story is intertwined with that of the pack, with the strict hierarchy that governs coexistence, and with each creature that finds in cooperation and silent observation the way to survive the constant challenges of the savannah. Life isn't just about hunting or fleeing, it's about interpreting every movement, every sound, every shadow, and turning them into your advantage. In the golden grasslands, where the afternoon light paints long shadows, the secretary bird moves with the same determination as the young lion. Every step of its armored paws is a reminder that even the smallest hunter can overpower a formidable foe. Its gaze scans the tall grass. Its flight is short but precise, and its strength lies in the combination of instinct and learning. He has taught his young, protected his mate, and left a legacy that transcends individuality. Their existence reflects the unwritten law of the savannah. Each species depends on another, and each survival becomes part of a greater whole. Beyond the direct struggle, the savannah is a web of life that adapts to each season. Rivers provide shelter and water, acacia trees provide shade and cover, and the migration of large herbivores redefines routes and opportunities. Every species, from the most feared predator to the swiftest prey, finds niches, learns risks, and exploits advantages. And in this constant flux, the balance is maintained that allows life to thrive, even in a territory where the heat is scorching and the competition is relentless. The Serengeti and the Kalahari, their grasslands and wetlands, their mountains and hills bear witness to every story of survival, every confrontation, every unexpected alliance. The lions, jackals, birds and snakes we've followed during this journey are just a few examples of a larger story. A living, dynamic, resilient ecosystem where cooperation, courage and strategy combine to ensure the savannah remains a sanctuary of life. And as the sun sets over the horizon, illuminating the secretary bird's silhouette for the last time on the golden grass, the deepest truth of the African savannah is revealed. Here, strength is balanced by cooperation, survival is intertwined with learning, and every creature, great and small, plays a role that ensures life continues, relentless and magnificent, generation after generation.